The desert lay silent beneath the moon's pale gaze, its dunes sculpted like golden waves by the ancient breath of the wind. But silence in the desert is deceptive, for beneath the stillness, the earth remembers footsteps, the stars remember stories, and the sands remember the weight of fury that once made the very ground tremble. On this night, the stillness began to fracture. A whisper rose, faint at first, then grew into a trembling echo, like a heart preparing to burst. The desert shook, as if it knew what was coming, as if it feared the fire that would soon ignite its golden skin. For Fazza walked beneath the sky. His stride was not of an ordinary man, but of a storm bound in human form, a tempest hidden in royal silence. His eyes carried both moonlight and lightning. His chest carried both love and wrath, and his soul burned with a flame that no horizon could contain. The camels raised their heads from the sparse grass, sensing the tension that coiled in the air. The falcons, restless on their perches, shivered in their feathers, for they felt in him the rising storm, the wrath of a man whose heart had been betrayed. The desert trembled, not from the wind, not from the shifting of dunes, but from the power in his veins, the fury in his breath, the fire in his words unspoken. Once the desert had known him as a poet of love. His verses had danced like rivers of light, flowing gently over the sands, soothing even the restless stars. His heart had been soft, like the velvet night sky, that embraces both lovers and dreamers. But tonight, love had turned to fury. The velvet sky had torn open to release the storm it had hidden. The flames of passion had become flames of vengeance, and Fazza's fury rose like a wildfire that the desert could not contain. He looked to the dunes, those golden waves that stretched into eternity, and they seemed to bow before him, as if acknowledging the force of his spirit. Each grain of sand trembled with his heartbeat. Each shadow deepened with his wrath. He was no longer merely a prince of words, no longer merely a rider of camels and horses, no longer only the falcon's master. He was fire. He was storm. He was the wrath that ignites worlds. The desert sky darkened, though the moon was still high. A cloud gathered where no cloud had been, and the stars themselves seemed to hold their breath. The winds, once gentle, screamed across the dunes, lifting plumes of golden dust that shimmered like sparks of fire. The desert shook again. This time the tremble was deeper, as though the earth's heart itself feared what Fazza carried within him. He spoke no words, yet the silence of his fury was louder than thunder, heavier than war drums, for he had seen betrayal. He had witnessed the shattering of trust, the breaking of a promise, the wound that no blade could carve, the wound of a heart torn in silence. Love, when betrayed, does not die quietly. It rises like a phoenix, but not of beauty and renewal, of fire and wrath, of storm and vengeance. And so Fazza's love became fury. His tenderness became fire. His poetry became thunder. His silence became a quake that shook the entire desert awake. The dunes whispered to one another, carrying his story through grains of sand. "The Prince of Hearts is no longer soft," they said. "The falcon now spreads wings of flame, and his cry will scorch the sky." The wind roared, twisting around him like a servant of his rage. His cloak billowed like the shadow of a storm. His steps left imprints that glowed faintly, as if the very sand had caught fire from the heat of his spirit. He remembered the nights of love, when poetry was enough to soothe his soul. But tonight no poem could contain him, for tonight his words were too heavy for paper, too fierce for gentle rhyme. Tonight his verses were storms, his stanzas were flames, his rhythm was the quake of the earth itself. The desert trembled, the horizon burned, the stars wept in silence, and Fazza stood tall, his fury igniting the endless dunes. His voice, when it came, was not a cry, not a roar, but a steady flame of command. Let the desert carry my wrath. Let the sands remember my fire. Let the winds scatter my fury to every corner of the night. For love betrayed becomes storm, and storm becomes destiny. The earth obeyed. The winds obeyed. The sands obeyed. For they knew he was not a man alone. He was an echo of the desert itself, the voice of fire hidden in its silence, the wrath that the earth had long awaited. And so the dunes ignited, not with literal fire, but with the blaze of fury, with the passion of storm. Every grain of sand shimmered like flame. Every shadow flickered like smoke. The desert became his battlefield, his canvas, his stage, and Fazza's wrath painted it with the colors of fire and storm. The desert had seen storms before. It had felt the rage of thunder, the strike of lightning, the furious sweep of winds that tore tents from the earth. But never had it felt fury like this, the fury of a heart aflame. For nature's storms come and go, but the storm of a betrayed soul lingers like fire smoldering beneath the sand. Fazza walked deeper into the night, his shadow cast long upon the dunes. It seemed the stars themselves fled from his gaze, afraid of the fire that burned behind his eyes. Each breath he took was heavy with flame. Each heartbeat a drumbeat of wrath. The silence of the desert was shattered by the echo of his soul. He climbed a dune, and from its golden crest, he gazed upon the endless horizon. It stretched like an ocean of sand, a sea without waves, a sea without mercy. But tonight that ocean would burn, for in his chest roared a fire that no dune could swallow, no wind could smother.